Hello and welcome to the Board Game BBQ podcast. I am your host, Mitch, tonight, and we are doing episode number 241. This episode is brought to you by adventgames.com.au and, of course, our Patreons. I would not be here doing this alone, so I do have a couple of gentlemen here with me today. Adrian from up in Brisbane, how are you, mate?
I'm good, man. I'm really, really good, actually. Had a great weekend. How'd you about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. It's been a pretty quiet weekend. It's been a good one nonetheless.
Nice.
And it looks like he's got an evening pass out of the nursing home. It's Dan. How you going, Dan?
Yeah, I've got to be back in a little while. I've put some pillows under the bed so the nurses don't know that I'm gone. And I thought I'd hang out with you blokes for about 90 minutes or so and talk board games.
Sounds like a plan. So what have we been up to? I mean, I know, Adrian, you've had a little bit of non-board gaming action today. Did you want to shed a little bit of light onto that?
No. No, I would. I'd like to, but I also
No
I feel like
spoilers.
I don't want to tilt anyone's opinion on the Guardians of the Galaxy film that I went and saw today.
Okay.
Like, if I say it was rubbish, maybe other people will go, "Oh yeah, I kind of get it." Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a weird thing. So if I say no opinion, then everyone goes and sees it because I advise you to go to see it and make your own. But yeah, I went and saw the Guardians film with Finn, which was great. He loved it, obviously, because it's a Guardians film. He's 7. Of course, he's going to love it. He thinks it's fantastic. And other than that, man, just been working real hard. We actually did a bunch of this sounds terribly boring. I'm so sorry, every listener that's here for a board game podcast, but we did some garden edging today. It was great.
Nice.
But it wasn't without a barbecue situation. We actually smoked some ribs, and I'm not very good at smoking pork ribs. Like, it's just, I either overdo it and then the bones go all brittle and, you know, that sort of fibery kind of thing they go into. I've done that a bunch of times. I've not much luck, but hey, they were on a special. I bought a whole heap of them and they came out perfect. So I was very, very happy.
I saw the photo that you shared on our Discord and I expected to see something like completely lathered in sort of, marinade or something like that. And they, but they obviously had something on it because it was,
so
they look good, but.
Do you smoke them first and then you baste them or something like that?
Yeah. So what I tend to do is I use the mustard, like you use the yellow mustard, like the hot dog mustard. You use that as a bind. Some of them I use that on, and some that I don't. If I'm using particular rubs, so this particular rub had dried apple in it and quite a lot of salt. So I didn't use the bind this time, and you just pour this rub on. And once it's on there, it kind of gets what Malcolm Reed, who's the guy I watch on YouTube, How to Barbecue Right is his YouTube channel. And he says it gets the meat sweats. And man, does it get the meat sweats. That thing just draws out all the moisture. And yeah, it's really strange because you'd think that would dry it out. I don't know the process because I am not of any kind of culinary expertise at all.
So normally meat sweats is what I get after I've eaten a plate.
That's exactly
of
right.
ribs.
That's what I thought when he first
I got to loosen my belt a little bit. It's like, oh, here come the meat sweats.
But yeah, I put the rub on, then I put them in the smoker for about 2 hours at 275 Fahrenheit.
Nice.
And I pull them out, wrap them up with a bit of butter, apple juice, and brown sugar in the wrap. Then put them back in for another 2 hours. Take them out, baste them up, put them back in for another 15 minutes to get that baste and that glaze to go all kind of caramelized, yeah, and just munch them down. It's brilliant.
Nice. Well, there you have it. The first episode 241, and we finally have some barbecue content on the Board Game BBQ podcast.
We've done it a few times, but not always. But yeah, it's been great. The weather's been good up here as well. It's not been too hot, not been too cold. It's kind of cooling down now, so that's nice. It's not as humid, Connor, so you can come and visit anytime. I know that he's worried about the humidity.
That's just his excuse.
There's his excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I think there's a different tribe of Sasquatches live in Queensland. He might be too afraid of going into their territory.
What's the Sasquatch story? I'm just going to start. How did that come about that we're calling Connor the Sasquatch now?
Every time he started talking on Discord, I just kept putting the Harry and the Hendersons gif up, of Harry, and just referencing him looking like Harry and the Hendersons, even though I don't think he looks like that at all. I knew eventually it would irk him, so I just kept doing it. and doing it and not giving up on it until he got real angry and started. And then now it's just like, now he's accepted it. Now he refers to himself as being a Yeti.
He
and
does.
I'm like, I got him. I've got him. So it's
The war of
great.
attrition.
Yeah,
Oh, dear.
that's it.
So we should probably talk about some board games. I'll throw over to you, Dan. I know you've been playing a couple of little games lately. What's been hitting your table?
Little games, yeah. I dived back into a bunch of roll and writes after the Patreon pod that you and I did, Mitch, where we talked about roll and writes, and it just sort of got me thinking. It got the juices flowing again about, we should play that again. I really want to revisit that. So I've been on a bit of a tangent where I dug out Super Skill Pinball, and on tour, I played a few games of that solo as well, because I love that big chunky dice. Someone actually pointed out, I think it was Draven who pointed out that I was saying how much I loved, just the simplicity of a D6, and yet on tour there's D10s with that. Yeah, so revisiting a few of those, and I was showing my boys some of the roll and writes as well. But another small game that you say I've been spending a lot of time playing is For Northwood, which is the solo trick-taking game that was funded recently by Side Room Games. And you and I are massive fans of Side Room Games. Obviously did Marquee and
Black Sonata.
I was going to say the Shakespeare one.
Yep.
And go ahead.
I can't help but think of the in-betweeners for Northwood, because there's a gang of kids in there that attack the boys at a school disco, and they're like, Northwood's in the house tonight, and they like bash up the kids. And every time I hear Northwood, I keep thinking of the in-betweeners. But this has nothing to do with the in-betweeners.
No, very little.
It's very cutesy.
Very little cute creatures. Although you are supposed to, when you win favor with the realms, you are supposed to shout for Northwood. That's actually in the
there
rules.
You go. Northwood's in the house. For all our UK listeners.
So, but it's so clever, and you would think, well, how the hell does a solo trick-taking game work? But it's great. I know you've played it as well, Mitch. But just the fact that you have to bid on how many tricks you're going to win, and then manipulate your own cards, your own hand to win none or 7. We only start with 8 cards. Sometimes you start with 10, depending on what challenge you're doing. And you start with 4 court cards, or the 4 jacks, but then there are there's 8 different realms, and each realm has a leader. And if you can win in the designated number of tricks, then you actually can use that leader in subsequent tricks, and every leader has a different ability. So you can mix up the order in which you play, which you aim for each realm, and you can then use their abilities to help you win more difficult realms, or vice versa. The replayability is insane. Every game is different, just because there's so much going on. Not to mention that it comes with its own little book of challenges as well, which just put a really unique spin on some of those things. Like the one I was actually doing today was, if it was called speed dating, but speed debating, because the whole thing is you're actually a little creature, and you're trying to talk to and convince these kings, or these court cards, to unite with their realm. And so it's each trick is the form of a conversation, and so you're trying to match. If they're in the 7, you have to win 7 tricks, for instance, and then you flip a card, and then from the deck, and you have to either win the trick or lose a trick, depending on how many you're aiming for. But with the first challenge, if you win with a card, whatever number that is, you have to add all the other values from your hand to the pile. And if you win, then you add more to the win pile. If you lose, you add more to the lose pile. That's a really, really interesting challenge, because you're not just, well, I have to play this 7, so I'll win, but now I've also got 2 other 7s in my hand, so I have to add those to my win pile, which now I've won 3 tricks, so I've got 3 points, but I'm trying to only win with 4, so how do I now only win 1 more trick with the 8 cards I've got remaining? So there is a lot of push and pull, a lot of strategy. How have you found it, Mitch?
Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it's so for those that don't really get how a solo trick-taking game would work, as Dan said, you essentially have a deck of cards, you draw 8 for yourself, and then each turn you're playing a trick, you draw 1 card from the deck for your opponent, and then you have to follow all the normal trick-taking rules. So if you have that suit, you have to follow the suit. But if you don't have the suit, you can then play a different card on it if you want. And each of the different leaders you will face, they also have their own trump. So you can play a trump card if you wanted to win the trick or not. And like Dan said, you've basically picked a leader based on what their score is that you're trying to attain. So their score might be, it's anything from 1 to 7?
1 to 7, but there is a 0 to 7.
0 to 7.
Yeah.
You're trying to get that number for each of those. And so, you know, I've found that going for the middle range is a good place to start out.
Yeah.
You know, for those sort of 4, 5, 6 or in that sort of range, because you can kind of get through it if you get a bit of luck on your side as well. But then when you're trying to do it the either extreme, either win none or 1 or the 7 or it's a bit more challenging.
Yeah, the good thing is, and a mistake I made earlier, I didn't really read the rules properly, is you deal your hand first before you choose which realm you want to actually have discussions or negotiations with. So if you've got a good hand of high cards, then you can maybe go for the 6 or the 7 tricks. Or if you've got a lousy hand, then you go for the lower ones. But of course, once you've visited that realm and either won or lost that game, then that's out. And so as it starts to peter out and you're playing a series of 8 rounds, you may only have the 0 left, the 0 realm, and if you do yourself a really strong hand, it's like, how am I gonna rig this so I lose every trick? Particularly if I'm strong in the trump suit as well, it makes it really, really difficult. And that's the real brain burning sort of thing, the crunch that I really enjoy with this.
But I think a lot of that plays into as well is those, I don't know what they call them officially, but there's those power cards, the jacks in the base game sort of version, and utilizing those at the right time to help you with whatever those challenges are, I think is the key. And even the decision space around, you talked before about how if you win one of the regions, you can then take that leader and use them and their power
in a subsequent game.
In a subsequent game. But there's also a decision there about when to do that as well. Because if you choose to take one down and then don't use it, it still goes away unused.
Yes. Yeah.
So
if you misplay it and you actually don't win that one, then that leader is actually removed from the game. Not only do you not score the points for that realm, but the leader is no longer available, and he would have been super helpful.
That's right.
To use when you're going for particularly the 0 or the 7.
So getting those power cards and being sure to play the right ones at the right time and make the decisions about that, I think is another good sort of decision space outside of the actual trick taking as well. I think the games that I've played I've had some wins on luck, just like, oh man, I fluked that, like the fact that the suit that came out, that I just happened to be on the right card at the last hand, like the last trick. You know, could have been, if it was anything else, I would have lost, and I just happened they drew the right card that I could beat them or lose to them or whatever.
But that's like most trick taking games, particularly when I play. Like I'll get an absolute hand of garbage, and then we'll be playing Niet, and Mitch will go, I'm gonna play with Dan this round, and I'm like, don't pick me, I've got nothing.
That won't ever happen again. But I mean, it goes both ways, right? I've had great luck that's just saved my bacon. But on the exact flip of that coin, I've just been like, no, the one thing I didn't want to happen happened as well. Yeah. So that the kind of the good and the bad luck, as you would expect, kind of balances itself out.
I had an example during the week where I had I was down. I needed to lose, and I was left with one card, and it was a high trump card. I'm like, I'm cooked. There's no way I can lose this. And I flipped the card over, and it was the one higher trump that just came out.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, saved me. Thank you very much. I lose. I've met my target. Happy days.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, there's some people obviously will say, I don't like that because I'm not in control of it. And, it comes into luck. It's not me controlling the game. And I get that. I get there's people out there that really want to be the ones who make every decision, and therefore they can say they either won or lost based on their own strategy. And that's great. I take nothing away from them.
Yeah.
But having that randomness and that luck that creates those suspenseful moments. It creates those moments that you remember where you go, oh, how's that happen? It was the one card I needed to come out, and it come out. So those are I think that's a good facet that people should enjoy.
It's an absolute winner. I don't know if it's in retail yet, or I know a lot of side room games that they're usually hard to get, but you can usually get them when they kickstart their next game. They usually have the ability to actually get them all. But just a side note as well, the artwork is really, really cute, but the quality of the cards as well. These are like professional, like plasticky, like poker cards. So this is the like casino quality one. So how you can get like the sort of the paper ones, or you can get the satin finish ones. These are like plastic ones that like professional poker rooms use. where they don't bend easy, they don't crease really easy. So no need to sleeve these cards. These are going to last. These are going to last a lifetime.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, great quality. So that's probably something that's been occupying a lot of my time recently. It's just really easy to break out. It's really easy just to put aside while I'm doing something and then come back to it. So yeah, for Northwood for sure.
Yeah, for Northwood. Okay, cool. And how about you, Adi? What have you been up to apart from gardening? What games have you been playing?
Well, I played my little Scythe with Finn, which was great. And it's been like 8 or 9 months since we played it last time. So it was quite a smooth transition into playing that again because he kind of got the concepts already, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, right.
And then we just went straight through that and we played a bunch of Quacks and some other games. But the game that I got introduced to actually last night, and I've never really played it before. I have attended a like late night, midnight going to of a Magic the Gathering thing where you buy in $50 or whatever and you get a bunch of cards, a bunch of packs, and you open the cards, and it's a drafting thing where everyone's drafting cards in these groups. Zero clue what I was doing because I was just invited to come along, and it opened at midnight, and I think we got to the pub at 7. So zero memory of what happened much at the Magic event itself. But I had a great time, and I remember really enjoying it. And a friend of ours, actually, who's really into the D&D and the role-playing side of things, we went round and had some dinner, and he's like, hey, would you like to play Magic? And it was an opportunity for all 4 of us to play Magic. And it was a type of Magic. It's called Magic the Gathering. I believe it's called Commander. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, guys, but from what I could tell is that you get 100 cards in your deck. And you also get what they call a commander. And your commander is like a card that, as far as I could also tell from the one game we played, he can't be killed. That unit is like your boss, like your big card. He cannot be killed, but he can be attacked, deplete all his health, and get taken out of the game. But you can summon him back into the game as long as you have enough resources to do it. It's an experience of playing Magic for a first time with a group of people that also hadn't, Ben had played it a lot, but his partner Amy and MJ had never played it, and I had only played it like the one time in a drunken haze. Didn't really count. It was actually a really good game, and I know everyone talks about how solid it is and how fun it is, and we actually got to have a really good discussion about Magic at the end about, like over the years that he's played Magic, has there ever been a point where you're bored of it? Is there ever a point where you just see these cards with the same powers coming back again and things like that? And he's like, yeah, you do see that. You do see powers that come back again into the game, but it doesn't make them boring. It's like, oh, well, that one can go really well with this one. And because the meta changes and the season changes so much, some really powerful cards are in and hot one season, and the next season they're gone and they're not being used. But this Commander version, from what I could understand, you can use pretty much any cards from a certain season and onwards to make your 100-card deck. There probably is very serious people that play it, like at that super high level, playing the Commander mode because they like that mode. But yeah, I mean, like, I really enjoyed the game. Like, I can't. It's really strange because it's a bit Res Arcana-y in a way because it's all card driven, but like you have resources on the table and you're tapping cards just like in Res, but you're attacking each other way more because in Res it's that engine builder. You're just trying to get to those victory points. Where in this, you are really trying to kill the other players and take them out. And it was really funny because Amy had a vampire deck, so she was attacking people and sucking life back. So she was doing small amounts of damage, but gaining sort of equal amount of damage back in health. So it ended up being quite a lot of damage, but she was getting a higher amount of health back, so it could sustain her for longer. I was like the green cards, which was like all forests. By the end of the game, I had like 18 forest cards in front of me that I could tap to summon other cards. And it made it really interesting because a couple of my monsters were like, when you play the card, it has an X value on it. So however many forest trees that I tap to create that creature is how powerful it is. So because I had like 14 cards at one point, I was able to tap all 14 and place him down. And then you put like a D20 on it set to 14. So you know how much hit points it's got. And like it became this massive beast that could, if you only had 3 forest cards, it would only be 3 power. I just got that card at the right time. And then because I played that card at a high level, it enabled me to get my boss card out almost immediately, because my boss was this T-Rex type looking creature, and he was able to be summoned where, depending on how many creatures and how much power I had out on the field, it made him cheaper to summon. And because I had one really high creature, I was able to summon my little T-Rex guy for like 2. But unfortunately, Amy had this card that was like a butcher, who basically made if she got damaged or attacked or anything like that, you had to sacrifice one of your heroes. So I constantly was summoning him back into the game, but having to sacrifice. I never got to use him and do a lot of damage with him. I won the game, and I'm not a Magic player, right? I don't have a clue really what I'm talking about. But for me personally, the experience was good, but I felt it was just too long. It was a long game. It's like an hour and a half for 4
Is
players.
it the Commander version that is typically longer because of? I don't know. Yeah,
I have zero clue, but I maybe Ben was just being nice at the start, and then we got a handle on him, and we all just jumped him because the 3 of us were like, "Hey, we're all noobs. Let's just attack the guy who's good." And then he was just muddling his way, trying to keep alive, while we all just kept belting him and belting him and belting him. And then when he kind of got down to being like 4 hit points, he knew he was out. We kind of were attacking each other, but we couldn't kill each other quick enough. Now, I don't know if it's a problem that we played a 4-player. Maybe I have that same thing with Res. Like Res Arcana, I think at 4 players is just too long. I just want to play it with 2.
It's interesting you say that, because when you say it went for an hour and a half, now I know you've played plenty of games that you love that go for well longer than an hour and a half, right? So it must be not only how long the game went, but a combination of, I guess, of the style of game and something that maybe
outstayed its welcome a bit.
Yeah, if it's something that you're not going to enjoy for 2-3 hours at a time.
I mean, like
I have a very early recollection of learning Magic, and it was over quick. I got my backside handed to me. So you obviously fared a lot better than I did.
Well, I don't understand the scale for that, right? How do we decide that this particular game has overstayed its welcome? Like, is it when I feel a bit disengaged? Because at one point, like, there's zero problem with the mechanics. Fantastic game, really interesting how it all works and how everyone has all these massively different decks that do completely different things, but it was very competitive and we were very close. By the end of the game, it was like anyone could have won it, right? But why did I feel a bit disengaged towards the end of that game? Was it that it was what made it for me feel like it was too long? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what the scale is. I don't know how to judge these things. But if it was on Mars or something, I wouldn't have a problem. I'd be like, this is great. It's 2.5 hours and I'm loving it. Maybe it is because it's a card game. This thing in my head that thinks, this should just be fast and quick and quippy. But like I said, I didn't have any problem with the game. I just felt like it was long at 4, which I think 2-player would fix. I think 2-player would really fix that.
Yeah, well, that was how actually I learned. One of my best mates, Dane, he taught me Magic the Gathering, and I'd always been Magic curious, and he dug out his old set and taught me. And I just remember sitting there, and I thought I had a grasp of it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And he goes, no, you can't do that just yet. And I was like, okay, I'll do this. And he goes, I wouldn't do that just yet. I was like, all right, well, I'll do this. He goes, no, you can't do that just yet. And I'm like, what do I know? But I remember then going away and actually learning a bit more about it, looking it all up and stuff. And it was my kind of game. I actually I actually fell down a rabbit hole of Hearthstone when that came out. And I know that was loosely based on, it was more graphical interface and all that stuff, but it was loosely based on the winning formula that Magic was based on. But I was also worried that it's such my kind of jam that I didn't want to fall down that rabbit hole of just buying things. I mean, almost all my top 5 games are all card game based. So it's probably a surprise that I don't play Magic. And also it's a community thing as well, which I don't really have access to at the moment. So, but yeah, I can definitely see the appeal in MTG.
The one thing that I did really love was I loved Ben's enthusiasm for the game, because I see that enthusiasm through him in D&D and stuff. He loves D&D. He's got all these minis and campaigns that he makes up and books and books and books of the stuff. So it's nice to be able to go there and be taught a game by him when he has that enthusiasm and gets to show me. I was like, I don't know, a bit overwhelmed in all the combos, and I didn't. It's hard to track, like, because MJ's cards mutated, and they were doing these mutation things where they're mutating onto other cards, and other cards are doing other things. I had no idea what her cards did. Like, it's really hard to track. But I say a pro player or someone that knows these cards is going to be like, I know exactly what she's doing. I know how many toughness and how much damage that does. You know, I can figure this out and build my other cards that I need to build. I kind of won on a fluke because, like I said, I didn't really know what was going on. But I thoroughly enjoyed the game. Would I buy it and get into it? Probably not. But if I went there again, I would definitely play it again, like 100% without thinking it. But next time, I'm just going to go full on destroyer mode and see if I can just win the game fast and see what happens. Because it took us a good 15 minutes to really understand exactly what some of the cards meant, because there's for me, I think there's a limited amount of iconography in the game, but there's a lot of text. There's a lot of, if this happens, then this happens, and this happens. And if you have this creature in, this means this. And there's a lot of key words that I didn't really understand until the game got moving. But it was really cool. Like, anyone that wants to try Magic, I would advise trying this version. It's a really good version you just get these cards and away you go. And there's, to be honest, he was telling me about all the different comic book shops and the different community spaces that offer these Magic the Gathering nights. Pretty sure even like Behold Games does it in Sydney. I know Tina does stuff for Magic the Gathering. Like, there's loads of these shops that do it.
It's massive.
And if you've never tried it before, you definitely have to try it. Like, it's one of those things that's like on the bucket list of, it's like an origin for a lot of modern board gaming, right? Especially the card games. So it's worth looking into. It's very different. So
yeah, I haven't really played that much. I just feel like it's very sort of, it's usually 1v1, right? Do they usually play?
So. Like,
I thought it was. I was surprised when Adrian said they were playing it four-handed. Yeah,
and it's very competitive. Like, it's not. It's like, I'm here to destroy you and take you out, and that's the end of the game. It's not really like I'm trying to get more victory points or I'm trying to beat you that way. It's like, to me, I kind of like, I don't know. I'd have to be playing with the right people, I think, that we're just happy to enjoy the game rather than just kill everyone.
There's definitely a few pubs and groups around here, and it says it very clearly. It will say, like, Magic the Gathering night, Thursday, extremely casual, like in big letters.
Yeah, right.
Like, some people, you know, who've been playing it for 10 years just come in and stomp a bunch of people isn't much fun for people who've never really played and only get to play it once every.
And I'm pretty sure they do events where, especially if it's great for beginners and things as well, where you almost get, like, everyone gets a fresh deck, so you're not bringing your own deck, and that way it's almost like a level playing field. Obviously,
That's
you've got more experience.
Thing.
Yeah, they do like a big box break of a new
release or whatever.
A new release, exactly, and everyone starts with a brand new fresh set, and away you go. So it evens the playing field out a little bit. No one's bringing their own personalized deck.
For the decks that we played with were pre-made by Ben. They were very much tilted into being good decks for the creature or the commander that you had. And like I said, it did feel quite balanced, because apart from poor Ben, who we just basically all jumped on towards the mid of the game when we realized that he might win, we were quite balanced for each other, and it was kind of going up and down a little bit. And I don't know if maybe that was the thing that kind of prolonged the game a bit too much for me, was that whole, like, I did 4 damage, but they gained 3 health. And then, you know, someone else did 1 damage, but someone else got 2 health. And it kind of, everyone sort of kept going up and down for a little while, a bit too long, rather than just whipping one person out of the game and shortening it. But yeah, Magic the Gathering Commander, man, just give it a look at. Everyone's going to come at me and say, you were talking absolute bollocks. You've got it all wrong. But hey, I could only go with what I was told, but I enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You know, you got to try something. You got to try them out one time. And if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. Oh, we're not a Magic podcast.
No.
We get board games wrong too, so that's okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I guess it would probably be my turn to have a chat about what I've been playing, but there hasn't really been that much apart from what I talked about on, I don't know if it was last episode, the episode before last, which was the Icefarian Guard. And
the rules the rule states in the run sheet the reason why I can't talk about Barrage or KDM is if it gets mentioned twice in a row on previous episodes, you're not allowed to do it. So you might as well just shut up and move on.
I'll overrule that because I want to hear all about Icefarian Guard.
Well, I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I did sizzle it last week.
But you're still enjoying it, obviously.
Yes, still enjoying it, and I mean the reason it's still out on my table is because there's 300 hours worth of content here. So it's yeah, and Brad and I have just been playing it sort of whenever we're both available between his shifts and things, and we'll jump down and have a few hours and play a couple of scenarios.
Do you feel like you're progressing? Do you feel like the story's advancing and moving forward? Is it?
The answer's no, because we're not trying to advance the story at this point. So the game is hard. Like let's just for saying that, right? It's hard in this. It's not hard to do what you want to do. It's not hard to play, but it's hard in that you've got to build up your equipment and stuff. And in order to build up your equipment, you got to get drops from animals. In order to pay the blacksmith to make what you want him to make, you've got to get money. And so you go off, traipsing around the countryside trying to get all those things, but then doing so you get battered and beaten up a bit, and so you've got to go heal in an inn, and you got to go pay to stay in an inn to rest and recover. And when you pay the money to rest and recover, well, now you don't have the money that you needed for the blacksmith, so you have to go back out and try and get money again. So it's kind of like this push and pull of stuff that you want to get.
It's a gameplay grind.
Yeah, it is.
But is the gameplay grind enjoyable?
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. If I had to be critical, I would say that I feel like you've got to find a balance. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, right? But I can see that there is grind there. If someone came to me and said, "Oh, I played Icefarian Guard and I didn't like it because it had grind in it," I'd go, "Yeah, I can get that. I can totally get that." Like there is definitely grind in it in terms of. You can't just go fight one beast, then go to the town and build your next level armor and off you go. So, we could have gone in and just kept pushing the narrative along. But the thing is, once you do that, well, then the story advances and then things get even harder. So once you cross from one chapter into the next, everything ramps up a level and you're basically up a level. So you kind of need to prepare yourself before you go to that next level to make sure that you're going to be competitive at that higher level. So, so we haven't done that yet. We're still – I think Brad and I are our own worst enemy, though, because we say, okay, let's go get that sword. We like this sword. It's in this town. We've got half the things we need to get it. We'll go get the last couple of things we need, and then we'll go get that sword and we'll upgrade your sword. Great. And then we'll be 3 nodes into doing that and a couple of animals we've been chasing down to hunt for their goods.
And you see something shiny.
Yeah, we see something else. We go, oh, we could get that instead. Why don't we go for that? And then we, go off and then we die and we lose our stuff and then we've got to start again. So we're probably not doing it as efficiently as we could be. I know.
But that's the beauty of every sandbox game. Something else pops up that gets your interest going. And my other question was going to be, do you think you'll make the 300 hours?
I don't know.
Because that seems
probably not. Just because it sounds like it's a long time, right? But it's really easy to just pick up and get going.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a massive table hog, but setup is like a couple of minutes. It's really not a lot to set up. The save mechanic in it is really good in terms of if you just want to stop and put it away for a while and then save where you're up to. Plus, they've just put some online resources where you can put all your save information online now and mark all your stuff on your maps and
it'd be great to have like an app like from one of these things where you could almost take a photo through the app of the table state and it saves it. Do you know what I mean? It gives you all the information.
Yeah, but that kind of is what the online stuff that they've created does, except you don't take a photo of it, you just
log it
in yourself with text and clicking buttons. So in terms of my gaming, I've pretty much just been on Icefarian Guard, so I won't go any further, except to say that we have started a sub-thread in our Discord channel just for the Icefarian Guard, and I think it's been the longest lasting thread that we've seen so far. It's still going strong.
I didn't complain, but I just pointed out that it looked like a CIA document. Like all it was like something 4 resources redacted 17 C4 redacted K42 go to page 25 redacted, and I'm like, just what's going on? I don't understand any of the stuff. It looks crazy.
And I want to click on it and find out, but the fact that they've got the spoiler bars up, I do appreciate, because like
I clicked it and I was
took me
like, I
great.
still don't understand.
I do want to enjoy. I do want to play it one day. So
Yeah.
So
we have created our own little thread, so we don't have to redact everything that we say. And yeah, it's been really cool because there's a handful of us that are playing, and everyone's able to share their stories and where they're at, and give advice and talk about there's some house ruling we're going to be doing. Just change a couple of little things here and there. Yeah, it's great. It's good. It's fun. I love it. I haven't been able to play anything else because it's on my table and don't want to put it away. So that's the Isofarian Guard.
yes,
But in terms of our sizzles then for the week, I'll throw to Adrian. What has really been piquing your interest?
Well, we spoke about games that we thought would last 10 years, like games that we'd be playing now that would see in 10 years' time. And a few came up, and a few actually came up in the community quite a lot. And one of them Connor mentioned, it was one that I was thinking about on the show, and it was Scythe.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to get to play Scythe again recently and kind of confirm that in my own head that this is a very solid game. And it's a strange one because yes, if you're really good at the game, and you've played it to death, you could probably exploit it and do really, really well. But that's like every game, right?
Yeah.
I'm just talking about if you bought this if you bought this today and you played it for the first time, I think you'd be very impressed with the game. And I think it's a very impressive game. And I like all its asymmetry. I like all of the sort of action boards that mix with the faction boards, therefore making it different every time. Sometimes you need different resources for different actions depending on what boards you have in play. And it's at its core, it's an incredibly simple game. It really is. And that's absolutely no disrespect to Jamie Stegmaier, because I actually think this is his best game. But it's simple in its actions and its movement and turn base and how it works, but it can be incredibly deep in its strategy and how you can position yourself in this game to have a win. Almost like TI and stuff. TI has that same sort of thing, right? You have the political round, essentially you're just sort of moving some ships and doing some upgrades, but it's all about the strategy and positioning yourself in the best spot to take those victory points and win the game. But I like the fact that in this game you have all these different avenues to victory, and they're all equally as important as each other. And it's kind of fun playing my little Scythe with Finn and then playing Scythe and seeing like the similarities in the two, right? Because there are a lot of similarities. When you take an action, you are taking an action on your player board and you move your pawn or your marker to the next action because you cannot take the same action twice, right? So if you moved in the last round, you cannot then move again in the same round. You have to move it and produce or bolster and increase your power and things like that, and gain combat cards to fight other people. I haven't played it at 2-player yet, and I really wanted to play it at 2 before I spoke about it, but I just haven't had the opportunity because I've been playing another game, which we'll come up to later on. But have you guys played Scythe at all?
Yes.
I have not.
You haven't?
Wow, okay.
Okay.
I think that this is, for me, like Terraforming Mars and Scythe and all that are those modern classics. Like they're those games that they are really they're such a genius design. They become like not a staple in everyone's collection, but almost a staple in the community, right? No offense, Dan, I know you haven't played it, but a lot of people have played it, right? It's a game that a lot of people have played and a lot of people love. And people that have only played it a couple of times, if you ask them, oh, do you want to play Scythe? You hardly ever get anyone go, oh, it's not really my jam. Like, because it's got so much variety in the play styles and what you can do to win. But yeah, I think it's a great game. It's really interesting. I love the asymmetrical mechs as well. I mean, the fact that they put all the mechs in and they all look different and stuff, that's a really nice touch.
They'll behave differently as well. So they've all got the different
they all
things
behave
that they
differently.
do.
Yeah, they all have asymmetrical powers. They all do different things. They, your leader, which you have your own leader out on the board, and they can do different things and interact with the game in a different way, but they even look different. And I love the fact that they've got these like really cool, like sort of hero-y looking people with these sort of badass animals. It's like their sidekick. There's like a bear and an ox and a hawk and a wolf and all these different sort of things. But in My Little Scythe, you play like cutesy versions of those animals, right? So you play the foxes, or you play the wolves, and you play the bison, or you play the different versions, or the ox, of those in that game. But yeah, I think it's a really solid game. It's really enjoyable. The art as well is fantastic. I love the world building of that art style, where like it feels grounded. It feels like a grounded in reality kind of a game. So I really think that's great. Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's really worth checking out. If you've never had the opportunity to play it before, I think you should definitely give it a go. I would be more than happy to play it. I liked it at 5 as well. Like it went with 5, and it was a long game. It was quite long. Like, I'm not going to lie. It was definitely
but they do have that kind of thing that speeds it up. I've noticed I've played games where people don't play it like this. They just wait till everybody's finished their whole turn. But you know how you've got the first turn actions where you're moving, and then you've got the second part of your action as well.
Yeah.
The idea, I think, and I think it says it in the rule book, is that once you've finished your first part of your turn, then the other person starts their turn. So when you're taking that second half of your turn, you can do that
just
while
to
the other person
downtime.
It wasn't until about halfway through the 5-player game I realized that was a possibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see how that can speed up the game dramatically. You're not waiting for everyone. But you know what? It's when you're playing the game with a group and you're all just sitting around talking and everyone's chatting away, and it's not like super serious. It's not the Scythe World Cup. Like it doesn't really matter if it's a long game. For some games, which is weird, right? Because I said Magic the Gathering felt like overstayed its welcome, but a 4-hour game of Scythe didn't for some reason. I don't understand. That's what I mean. Like, what's the scale? I don't get it. So.
Well, maybe we'll come to that question a bit later, but that's great. So that's Scythe.
Yeah, and I would actually really like to try the Fenris expansion at some point, because Rise of Fenris, I've heard Dev talk about it being like one of the greatest expansions ever made. Whenever anyone's talking about expansions, this always gets in on some lists because it's so well received. So I would like to look into that, potentially buy it, maybe even find someone to play it on the regular with and see it, or maybe even just binge it and see if we can just smash it out. But yeah, I'm going to look into that.
Yeah, I've heard great things about that expansion, because it brings I believe it brings a bit of a narrative into it as well.
Yes, like a campaign-y, scenario-y type thing to the game. But yeah,
which would be awesome. So yeah, cool. So that's Scythe. So Dan, what's been your sizzle for the week?
Game I wanted to sizzle this week is we've revisited an old classic. I picked up a card game version of Camel Up. It's Camel Up, the card game. This is fantastic. Now, normally, like card games, you think of like it's just a dumbed down version of it. It's like a travel size version of the bigger game, because if you haven't played Camel Up, the original, it's quite a large game. It's got some pop-up trees on it, and it's got the newer version has a plastic pyramid that you click, and the dice come out, and you're moving these camels around the board, and you're essentially wagering on which camel you think is going to be in the front, in the lead at each leg, and then you can also wager on which camel you think is going to win or lose, because there's also a crazy camel that goes in the opposite direction. Well, this is just a card game version of that, and I actually think it's better. I really like it because it adds a little bit, it takes away a little bit of the randomness of the dice and adds a little strategy. Now, we've been playing 4 players. We've been playing Jen and I and the boys. And the way it works is you lay these cards out in the middle of the table, and that forms the track. Got the start line and the finish line. And each of the cards has 2 spaces on it. So there's 1 and 2. Next card has 3 and 4. And that actually, I'll come back to that later, because that actually has significance. And then all the camels. So you still have all the camels that you do in the original game. There's 5 different colors plus the black crazy camel that goes in the opposite direction and really messes up with the field and the way that they proceed down the track. But all of the movement is not dice this time. It's all on cards. So every coloured camel has, I think it's 6 cards. They all have 1 movement, and there's a single card that has a movement of 2. And you shuffle all those cards together and you deal them out. Now, depending on how many players you've got, because I think it plays up to 6, it changes the state of the game. It changes how long the track is. It changes how many cards you deal out, and it changes how many cards you hang on to and how many cards you discard. So when we play 4 players, everyone gets 6 cards, and of the cards you get dealt, you straight away bin 3 of them. So you're choosing 3 cards that you want, and later in the later stages of the game, you might hang on to the cards that have movement for the camel that you've backed to win, or you might want to actually almost like rig the deck a little bit, because you bin 3 cards, and then 2 of the cards you keep go into the actual deck. So then everyone will put 2 cards in. So now there's 8 cards in there. You shuffle them up, and they're the cards that you flip over and determine which camel moves down the track. The remaining card you actually put face up in front of you, and you can play that at any time as well. So you can kind of mess with people, because you might put the purple 2 in front of you, so people are going to go, well, for sure he's going to play that purple 2, and maybe you don't play the purple 2. Maybe you just leave it there for people to think you're going to play the purple 2. So the deck of 8 cards in the example of 4 players is made up of cards that everyone has pretty much drafted. And then on your turn, you can do 2 actions. You can do a race action, which is to play the card in front of you as a one-off. You can flip one of the race deck cards over and you move the camel. Or you can place a shortcut, or there's a creature called a fennec. It's like a desert rat, a fennec. And you place that on the board, and the shortcut will make the first, whatever camel lands on that space, go ahead one, and the fennec will actually scare the camel off, and whatever camel lands on that spot will actually move it back. In a similar way to with the bigger version, you can have the crowds that cheer on the board, and it will actually give the camel momentum or send them one spot back. So it maintains that element. But you also on your turn, you can place a bet. So you can take one of the 5 cards that are a one shot only, and if you take that camel that you think is going to win and you keep it in front of you, or take the card of the camel you think is going to lose the overall game. And then there's also a series of cards for whatever camel you think is going to win at the end of the leg, end of the round, and what camel that you think is going to be in the middle of the field at the end of the round. And the middle of the field one, I think it's 5, 2, and 1, depending on who takes the first one. But if your camel is in the lead or at the end, then you actually lose coins. So the betting element is still there. But those round ones actually get replenished at the end of each round, and a round is simply when the deck exhausts. So when those 8 cards are no longer, that's the end of the leg, and then we tally up all the mid or the end of round betting. They'll get put back. Any of the cards you've taken for the camel to win the entire race or lose the entire race, they stay with you. And there's only 1 card for each color. So in the other game, you could actually multiple people could bet and they think the red camel is going to win. On this one, the first person who takes the card to say the red camel is going to win, no one else can back that red camel to win. Which also then means that maybe you don't want the red camel to win, because you know that the person sitting opposite you is going to win money if that red camel wins, kind of like downforce. So next round, when we're loading up the deck with the cards that we've been dealt, maybe you don't put any red ones in there. So then they're going to be stuck with that red winning card, and that's the part of this game that I enjoy probably the most, is you have a lot more agency to actually decide on how things pan out. Now, there's still the randomness of it. You don't know you don't know what cards are going to be dealt before that little drafting thing. Also, with the 8 cards I've got to mention, you take 2 of the black camel and put them in there, of the crazy camel, and put them into the deck. So there's always going to be 2 crazy camel cards that come out, and they range from a 0 movement to a 2 movement. And because it's a straight line, they've also brought in some other rules as well. So when the crazy camel gets past the 4th camel, at the end of the leg, if the crazy camel has messed with the field and worked its way backwards towards the start line, and it's the 4th camel, you then move it to 3 spaces in front of the first camel. So because the original game has that circuit where it could actually do a lap and start messing with them towards the end of the race, you deliberately move the camel. The other thing they have is with the cards, if at the end of a leg you ever have an entire card, because I remember I mentioned the cards had 2 spaces on them. If you have a card that is completely free and it's in the middle of the field, you flip it over and it becomes a single space instead of a double space. So then the camels at the back, have a bit that's like a catch-up mechanism. So now they're only one space away from the rest of the pack. So you don't have that, so those sort of runaway leaders like you do with the other game, that can happen sometimes. So it's really good. It's really tight. It's really it's still just as much fun as the bigger game. But yeah, if you've heard of if you've seen Camel Up the card game in stores and thought, no, that's just a just a
watered down version of the
exactly
other
a watered down or a travel version, it's really not. It's actually really, really strategic. And I got to say, I think we'll probably play this more than the other one. My boys like to click sometimes
the pyramid.
Sometimes all they want to do is just click the pyramid and drop the dice out. You don't know what dice is going to come, and then they move the camels along and probably don't do the betting as much. Whereas this one, you're actually doing both. On your turn, you get to do a race action and do a betting action. The only time you can't do that is if you take the very last betting action, the very last race action card, and that's the last one in the deck. You can't then do a bet following that, because obviously then you could go, well, I'm going to bet that this one is at the front of this leg, and that's the end of the leg, and it is. So that's the only rule. But it forces you to do a bit of both, a bit of wagering and a bit of moving the game along. So everyone's just not like bet, and the camels aren't actually going anywhere. So to that end, the game does actually go quite quickly. Probably still around 45 minutes. So it wasn't as long as an hour. Our first game was, because the boys were still getting the hang of it. But then the next night they're like, can we play the camel game again? I'm like, absolutely. Because there's still the big chunky camels that you get from the original game. So yeah, it's really, really good.
That's cool. So that's Camel Up the card game.
Yeah, definitely. Give it a shot.
Check that one out. All right, so that leaves me to talk about my game of the week. And my sizzle is going to be the Isofarian game. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm editing that out, so it's fine.
You're not allowed. No, I actually have played another game this week, and it's a great game. So I am going to sizzle this one, and it is Solani by Drake Villarreal and Final Frontier Games, I think they're called.
Was it a hot salami or a mild salami?
It's funny you should say that, because that's what Layla's calling it. She's running her house calling it salami. It's Solani.
Dad's in the garage playing with his salami again.
Yeah, so Solani is basically an abstract game. It's a sort of an abstract puzzle game. Played it a few times now, and I've enjoyed it every single time. The theme around it is that you're building constellations in the sky. There is a story. I haven't read it yet, because I think I can't recall. There is some information that says that the Native American people who have these stories about how the stars were made, they only tell these stories at certain times of the year. And so they sort of ask you not to read or tell the stories out loud if it's not that time of the year. And it hasn't been. So I haven't actually read the details yet, and I thought I would respect that. So I don't know fully the background in terms of the theme of it, but at its heart, it's an abstract puzzle game. And what you're doing is you're drafting star constellations and placing them in your different skies. So you have a board that represents the north, south, east, west skies. And then you're also drafting pieces that are star branches that essentially connect the different star constellations as well. What you're doing essentially to score points is, if you place a token, which is a round token with stars on it, that has, say, for example, 3 stars on it, then you will only score points for that token at the end of the game if you have 3 star branches connecting to that constellation. So you're trying to put them down. You obviously don't have complete control over what you can put where, because you've got limited by the board and where the pieces go and the pieces that you can draft. So then it becomes a challenge of, do I just get as many stars as I can, because the more stars that I can get on my board is more potential to score points. But you also then have a bigger challenge to make sure you can get enough star branches to connect to them as well. There's additional ways you can score points. You can choose to forfeit your star constellation on each turn, and from the center of the board, you can choose to take a planet token, and for every unique colored planet in each sky that you place, you'll score a point at the end of the game. But they will only score points if they have no star branches touching the planets. So you can get yourself into a big mess where you thinking you're going really well, then you go, oh no, I'm not going to be able to, or that's going to touch that star branch, so I'm not going to score points for that now, and it's just that's gone, or whatever. If you've put a thing down there touching your planet, or you might realize that you've got a 4-star constellation, and the way you've placed it, there's no position remaining where you can add the last star branch that you need in order for that piece to score. So it's really good. There's also what they call bright stars. So some of the stars on each of those little tokens will be they're not coloured in, so the opposite of shaded. They're just the outline of the star, and they're considered a bright star. And when you place those, you score 1 point for every bright star in that sky that you've placed. So there's this sort of snowballing mechanic there. If you go for the bright stars all the time and continue to place them in that particular sky, then every time you score points for that, it'll be more points and more points and more points, which is what Layla did when we played yesterday. And she was, very nearly ran away with the game. But and then with that as well, there's these 4 sort of additional objective cards that you're going for, that when you close off certain areas on your sky map, you have to place those out on the board as well. And depending on where you place those, you can get lots of points for them if you place them in the correct area based on their criteria, or you might not get points if you don't satisfy the objectives that are on those cards. So there's a little bit to it. At its heart, it's a drafting game, because when the stars come out of the bags, because the stars and the star branches will come out of drawn out of a bag each round, and then you take turn like a snaking draft to choose which ones you're going to place. Yeah, it's just really fun. It's probably doesn't make a lot of sense just to talk about it. You're probably thinking, I don't know how that all works and what you're talking about, Mitch. But when you get to see it on a board, it all sort of fits together, and it's actually really quite easy to learn.
On the player mat.
On the player mat, because every player gets their own player mat, which is neoprene. The quality of the components is just.
I'm looking at it now on BGG. It looks phenomenal.
Yeah,
just the tiles and how they all fit together with the round tiles and the.
Yep, because the round tokens are the star constellations, and then I don't even know what shape you would call that. It's kind of like a fat cross or something. They fit in between all the circle tokens, and they're the star branches. So it's super cool the way it all fits together. As I said, the components are really great. It's a puzzle that, like, I don't know how much exposure this game will get to the whole market, but I could definitely see this game being up there with Azul. Like, my wife loves Azul, and I said to her after the game, I said, "Do you enjoy it?" She said, "Yeah, it was really good." I said, "If you had a choice to play Azul or this one, which would you choose?" And she was like, "I don't know. I could play either one, and I'd be just as happy." So for her, it's on the same level, and I think for me, I think there's just. It feels like you've got a little bit more control over the decision space in this. Maybe like the other side of the board in Azul, where you can place the colours wherever you want.
Yep.
But it also doesn't feel as punishing either. I really enjoy it. I played it with Jules when he was here one time as well, and he's jonesing to play it again. He said he commented on the post that I made about it and said, "I really want to play this game again."
Did you back it on Kickstarter, or did you buy it retail?
No, I backed it on Kickstarter, and it's only fulfilled, about 2 or 3 weeks ago now. So there's probably not, I don't think it's available at retail anywhere yet. And there's probably still locations around the world where they haven't actually received their pledges yet. I think we were pretty lucky, and we were one of the first to sort of get them.
Yeah.
But it's a great game. If you're into, those abstract tile laying puzzle sort of style games, I would highly suggest giving this one a go, because everything from componentry to the nice theme, the design, and the gameplay all fits together. It's all great. It's right up there. And I think I'll be introducing this game to a lot of like new gamers and stuff like that as well. It's going to fit in that Cascadia, Azul, right in that sort of area for me.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. So that's Solani. As a podcaster, it's quite difficult sometimes. You try and do an impromptu ad to get a little bit of a vibe going when you're recording, and the two people recording with you are completely brainless and don't pick up on your subtle clues. Have you ever had that happen, Adrian?
Well, I would have, but I was too busy shopping at adventgames.com.au.
Adventgames.com.au, they apparently have an absolutely amazing range of games to choose from.
They definitely do. I've actually bought a bunch of stuff from there, especially over the Christmas period. It's always really good service as well. Like, you can always message Advent and they will give you replies back pretty much straight away. Dean's an absolute great guy. He does community building stuff in Sydney. See him at game days.
Sorry I'm late, guys. I was just on my phone reading the latest newsletter from Advent Games. What are you guys talking about?
Well, funnily enough, we're talking about adventgames.com.au. They always are the first to have really good pre-orders available. If you're ever wondering about thinking, I want to get that game when it comes to Australia, head over to adventgames.com.au. You can almost be certain that they'll have a pre-order option there. You can lock it in and know that you'll be one of the first to get it as soon as it's available.
All right, what was that? We'll start again. I'm going to head over there right now.
It's www.adventgames.com.au.
I'm on there now. Done.
Just touch on a couple of news items that we need to talk about. First of all, the Melbourne Game Day has been announced, and it will be on June 17th at the Preston Town Hall. Anything you want to add there? You're the Melburnian of the group, Dan.
So Mike, Connor, and myself will be there. We're actually got a bunch of volunteers that are going to be helping us out as well. So make sure you head over to Eventbrite and grab your tickets now. I think we've still got 6 or 7 weeks out, and we're almost 50% sold already. We're also going to be supported on the day by Gumnut.com, which is the online store for mind games. They're going to be helping us out, and also Gameway Tables are going to be having. We're going to be having some of their tables that you can play on some professional, and these gaming tables are amazing. So I'm
saving my pocket money to get one in like a year's time. Yeah. I want to support local, and they're a beautiful table.
They are amazing.
Yeah, I'm putting some pennies away.
I spoke to the guys from Gameway during the week, and so they're going to be at our game day as well. So June 17th, grab your tickets. We haven't locked in our scheduled teachers yet. We're going to be releasing them probably about 2 weeks out from somewhere around the start of June. So we will have a whole bunch of scheduled gaming lessons where if there's something you want to learn, we're going to have old games, new games, all sorts of stuff that you can sign up for. And it's free with your general admission ticket to learn to play a game from one of the Board Game BBQ team or one of our volunteers.
And just on that, the next Sydney Game Day, which is not actually on sale yet, but just a heads up for everybody to be aware, will actually fall on the same date, June 17. So announcing that now. Super Saturday. So Sydney and Melbourne will be on the same date, June 17th. So if you are in Sydney and have just heard this, then keep your eyes peeled for when that tickets go on sale there. We're just ironing out some last minute details, but that should be coming shortly. Board Game BBQ Awards, Dan, how are we going with that?
Well, as of the recording, the community still has about 4 hours left to nominate. So by the time you hear this, then our official nominees of our 8 categories will all be locked in, and our Patreons, our esteemed panel of judges, will already be voting on who the winner of each category. So just a reminder, we have best solo game, best party game, best light game, best medium weight game, best heavy game, best expansion, best artwork, and game of the year for 2022. So they're the 8 categories for our 3rd annual Board Game BBQ Awards. It's really exciting. I have seen some of the games that have been nominated. I don't know where some of the front runners are, so I don't know who's going to win because it'll be our Patreons who decide that. But there are some great games that the community has nominated. There's some games where I'm really pleased that the community has put them up for a gong, and you'll be seeing all of that. We'll announce all the official nominees on the next show, but also check our socials because we'll be putting up all the nominees on our socials and making sure that the publishers are aware that the community has voted them as one of the best games of 2022.
Cool. And Adrian, we were doing a giveaway because some fool got onto a podcast and just said, hey, we're going to give away a heap of prizes when we get to 1,000 people into Discord. And so, you had to follow up on that, and you've been pretty much orchestrating that. So how's that all going?
Well, it's all locked down. Literally, as of an hour and 15 minutes ago, all of the people have entered, and we will be drawing those winners on the 9th of May live at 8 p.m. So
something like that. Yep.
Yeah,
but that'll be if you're listening
time.
to this the first day that this is launched.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that'll be
that
tonight.
Night.
That'll night.
Yes.
Yep. So there you go.
Hopefully see you there, and have a chat and a laugh and see if you win some games.
Yeah.
And it'll be live on the Facebook community. That's where we're doing it. So, yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, that will wrap us up for this segment. So we will move right along to our question of the pod. Okay, our question of the pod. So, Adrian, you kind of touched on this earlier because we did ask this question a couple of episodes ago, and then we kind of forgot to put it out on the socials, and so we had to skip to this episode. So here we are.
It was all part of the plan. It was all part of the plan.
Yeah, that's how we drew it up. So the question was, what games will you still be playing in 10 years from now? Did you come up with this one, Adrian? I think you were on the initial episode.
Yeah, it was just because we were playing Quacks again, and I could see us playing Quacks again in 5 years' time with Finn. And, when he's has a few friends around, he's a little bit older and stuff, I could see us introducing it to his groups of friends as he gets a bit older. So I think that, we've already been playing that game for like 4 years. So therefore, I was wondering, what other games do people play that they think they'll be playing in 10 years' time from now? And yeah, there was some super interesting answers. I'm not sure if Dan has been on the show since. So Dan, did you have any input on that?
I haven't been on the show since, and I was just thinking when Mitch was talking about Azul before, thought that is a great example of something that I know I will be playing in 10 years. And even just looking at my top 10, it's like I would like to think that I'm still playing my top 10, but there's obviously games that are going to come out that I'm going to fall in love with, and I'm going to sort of maybe replace some of those. But the ones that stand the test of time, Pandemic, Azul, Quacks is another great example. Some of those newer games that we already think are going to become those evergreen titles, definitely, I think I can see myself playing in 10, 20 years' time. Yeah, particularly the ones that Jen and I sit down and play with, and they're the ones that it's almost like a tradition to have a cup of, put a coffee on and just play a game of Azul or play a game of some of those sort of two-player games. Hanamakoji, for instance, is a new one that we love playing. So yeah, definitely see myself playing in 10 years' time, some of those ones.
Nice. And we had some people from our Facebook community contribute. We had Kevin Chu say the classic game of Go. He's been playing it for 30 years already, and he can see himself playing it for another 30 years. Now, that's an old game, right? That game's like 2,000 plus years old, Go, right? So that obviously is standing the test of time.
Well, Dan would know, right?
I was at the early prototypes.
I'm sure that joke made the edit last year for the best of episode. But Mitch, I think Mitch said it as well. I knew he was aching to say it again.
Yeah. It was actually called Stones.
It's called Stones.
And they kept saying, it's your go. And I went, why don't we just call it Go? And so the name kind of stuck.
Is that because you were old then as well? And they were like, she'll go down, come on.
Hey, with this new soundboard, Mitch, have you got a bleep button there? We'll always test it out.
We also had Andrew John Egan say he expects he'll still be stuck on level 1 of Warp's Edge in 10 years' time. Now, I haven't played Warp's Edge. What is that?
It's a solo game.
It does sound like a solo-y game. Go for it.
It's a solo. I was going to say it's a single-player solo game. It's a sci-fi solo game where you have to. It's a bag builder. So you got these tokens you draw out of a bag, and there's like a waves of alien enemies will come at you, and you've got to play your chips as they come out of the bag in order to take out the enemies. It is super tough.
This sounds like a game that you've owned and sold.
Correct.
Yes. It's tough. Yes. I'm out. I'm done.
No, I actually like hard solo games, but it is actually a really
hard, and then there's hard.
Yeah. Well, I like hard, but anyway, I didn't sell it because it was hard. I just sold it because it was a shelf space issue, and I just needed to. There were other stuff that I would have played ahead of it.
Fair play.
But yeah, it's a good game.
Ian O'Toole says Sausage Dice. Now I know Sausage Dice has played the Sydney Game Day a bunch by Mike and Connor. They loved it. They had a good time with it. I think Mike went on a binging spree trying to find it. I think he's like pleading people to try and, he's appealing to the public to be like, please, has anyone got that Sausage Dice? I want to get it. So, yeah. Sausage dice. Mark Babe, I think, says, "What did you buy now?" The game. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the what did you buy now?
Yeah.
The game.
yeah, pretty much.
I've been playing that game a lot because we just got a new doorbell and it's got a video camera. So every time the doorbell rings, Jen at work gets the video of the postman handing me another package. So the first thing she says when she walks in the door, "What did you buy now?"
Yeah, I think we've all played that game, haven't we?
And JB says Twilight Imperium 4. Played it for the first time this weekend. And it is epic and huge and has huge replayability with the 17 races. Now, I didn't realize the base game had 17 races in it. I don't know why. I thought that was the expansion, but I completely, believe everybody because you've mentioned it a couple of times, Mitch, on the pod that it's got 17 races. So
I don't know if 17 has a hell of a lot.
yeah, well, JB says it does. He knows more than us combined, so we're going
Well,
with
that
17.
maybe, I know JB too. Maybe he's just gone out and got the expansion straight away, counting that in too.
JB
Who knows?
Yeah, that's definitely a game that you could. It's on the 4th edition. Do you think we'll ever see a 5th edition?
Quite possibly.
App integration, maybe. I don't know, like something.
Maybe.
Yeah, cool. That was the Facebook contributions. Dan, did you want to talk about the Discord?
I checked out the Discord ones. Matt, also known as Snake Oz, says Hero Quest. He's had it for over 10 years, and now he has the new edition. He also says Fireball, Unsettled, and Final Girl. It's funny. I just thought of Final Girl when Andrew said that he'll be stuck on level 1 of Warp's Edge in 10 years' time. I think, he's stuck on trying to beat the Poltergeist in Final Girl in 10 years' time.
I see that Fireball Island everywhere. Never played it.
Oh, it's great. We've got it.
It's impressive.
It was one of the very first
impressive.
It was one of the very first Kickstarters I got. And I had no knowledge of the original because this was by Restoration Games. They redid it. But it's great fun. Yeah, the boys really like it. Uberface says Root because it has so much content and it's such a good game. He sees himself playing that in 10 years' time. Tegs Plays Games says Hive. Definitely Hive. My husband and I have been playing it regularly for over 10 years so far. I don't see any reason we'd not keep playing it for another 10. That is awesome. I love those big, chunky hexagon tiles. And Hells said, I don't think I'll ever stop playing this War of Mine. It just doesn't get to the table more than a couple times a year, though. It was one of my first modern board games and started me on this solo gamer ride, so it holds a special place for her.
Yeah, nice.
All good options, all good choices there.
So, all different as well.
Yeah. I haven't chimed in on this topic yet, but if I was going to say, I think I'll be playing this chapter of Icefarian Guard for the next 10 years. So
500 hours.
Exactly.
Well, 482 hours to go. I think you will as well.
All right. So moving on to the next question of the pod for next week. I was thinking we'd go with, Adrian was talking about the disparity between the length of the game for Magic the Gathering and the length of the game for Scythe and Pipeline and On Mars. So what in a game, what keeps you engaged in a board game? Now, this could be anything. This could be the theme that keeps you engaged. It could be the mechanics that keeps you engaged. Maybe it's player interaction that keeps you engaged. Maybe it's player elimination. You're afraid of getting killed. What do you guys think? What's something that you think is engaging for you and will let you stay in a long game?
Oh, I think mine's like that, building up, like not engine builder, but in those heavier Euro games when you're in for the long haul, but you start off with nothing. You start off with like $4, and every move is like next to impossible. And then in the second round, you get a little bit more wiggle room, and in the third round, you've built up a bit more of an engine. And do you know what I mean? That seeing that progression in a game like that, and knowing that you're getting better, and all of a sudden everything kind of lining up, the cards all lining up, and being like, wow, like I'm doing stuff. At the start of this first round, at the very first round, I had nothing, and now I've got all this cool stuff, and I built this big thing, and just seeing the progression and feeling like I've progressed and built something.
I think for me, there's probably the things that keep me engaged in a game are the things that the different reasons why I play games. So if there's one that's just a hell of a lot of fun to play with people, then I'll always be engaged because it's a hell of a lot of fun to play with people. But if it's a game that really makes me think, and even if I'm doing badly at it, if I feel like I'm being challenged just I'm with a bit of crunch or a bit of brain burn, then I'll stay engaged and I'll want to play again. If I ever get to a point where I can play a game on autopilot, then the engagement is gone for me, and I probably won't last on my shelf. And even some of the games that I play a lot still offer that, whether it's variability or something new or randomness that I actually have to try and puzzle my way out of this. That's the engagement for me. That's probably the biggest takeaway. Even if it's a game like something like playing Barrage or one of those bigger games, TO, for instance, I love just to try and think my way out of situations. I will always enjoy it, even if I'm doing badly. I can always walk away and go, okay, well, if I'd done this, okay, I think I'm ready. I know what I did wrong. I'm happy to have a go next time. If I walk away and I go, I have no idea what I did. I have no idea what happened. That I don't even know how I lost. Then I have no interest, and it's certainly not going to hold any engagement for me.
Yeah, I think it's. I think I kind of agree with you guys. If there's something that, like, even in the downtime, even when it's not your turn, if it's a game where you can, it keeps your brain ticking over. Like, so you might not have anything to do that, not during the off turns, or you may not really be impacted by what other people are doing. But if I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what have I got to do on the next turn, and I'm trying to plan out what's going to happen, and I'm trying to think, through what the best move for me is and that sort of stuff, then that's engaging enough for me. I know there's definitely games where you can go, well, I take my turn and that's it, and there's not really anything I can do now until it's my turn again. I think those ones probably have a shorter shelf life in terms of how long you can sit there and maintain sort of focus. If there's not really anything in between your turns, even to sort of really think about and plan. I will go a little away from what you guys have said as well, and said I am a bit of a themer. So if a game has a good theme and good depth in terms of the story and what you're doing while you're playing, then that will keep me engaged as well. And it's especially seen like during narrative games and things like that, with following along the story and what's happening and wanting to find out what happens next and where that's going to lead to, and going down that path. So there's some things that keep me engaged as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. All right. Well, then that's our input on it. But over to you guys to get onto our socials, onto Facebook or onto Discord or anywhere that you'll see the post about that, and let us know what you find most engaging in games. And as I said, this is a bit of an open-ended one. You can talk about whatever you like. It doesn't have to be a mechanic. It doesn't have to be a particular type of mechanic or anything like that. It could be theme or anything.
It could be your favorite cocktail. Like, they just keep coming, keep drinking them, and you're having a great time betting on horses, and you're just having a ready, set, bet-a-thon. Maybe whatever you like. Very easy.
Anything. Absolutely.
Yeah. All and also drop some examples as well. We always love when people give examples of a game that really engages them, because most people in the community are always on the lookout for new games. So, drop some of your favorite sort of most engaging games.
No worries. And as we will go to the community for the question of the pod input, we will also like to take the time to thank some folks in the community, specifically our Patreons, Lisa MJ, Russell Pereira, Joe DeLuca, and Kevin Lamar, who are our 4 Patreons of note this episode. And I think, Dan, also, we always talk about you promising to read out the different reviews that are left on the Apple podcast, 5 stars. So I believe you have some for us today.
I do. I can deliver. I wasn't on last month. We had a couple reviews come through on our Apple iTunes. So if you want to leave a 5-star review, hell, just leave any review and we'll read it out. Well, we'll review it out on the show. But we've got one here from Nards2727. Good old Nards. It says, "Addicts, not experts." The tagline sums up the feel of the show so well. I've listened to over 100 episodes now, and it feels exactly like you're sitting around a fire having the best conversations about the thing you're all passionate about, games. Love the variety, love the humor and the dynamic of the Board Game BBQ. The UK has Shut Up, Sit Down. Australia has Board Game BBQ. Thanks, Nard.
Oh, that's really nice.
That's an awesome review. Yeah, love that.
It's a very nice review. Yeah, thank you.
And Tegs 511 has risen to the challenge and left us a limerick. There we go. "You may have heard this podcast's a big deal. Now, I've been listening a while and I feel sizzles and oaths are great fun. The community's second to none, but the podcast is no dice, man. Let's be real."
Oh,
I know.
That's a bit
Excellent.
scathing.
But I agree. We are certainly no dice men.
No,
and
no,
thank
we have a
God
higher
for that.
standard than they. Than
We
them.
do.
All right.
So thanks to
I did hear a rumor. Speaking of the dice men, I did hear a rumor that they just were unable to cope with too many bones the other night. That's just. Ooh. They actually reached out for some a lifeline. Let's just put it that way.
the hotline,
I tried to help.
the hotline to Mitch.
I tried to help, but no one listened to my advice. So.
No, because people know you now, Adrian, and listening to advice from you is probably not something you're going to do.
Yeah, just don't do that. After 9 p.m., it's like Cinderella and the Pumpkin Chariot. Like after 9 p.m., everything turns to custard, and I'll just say anything for fun.
I saw the comment. Mark said that he was playing with Hangry, and I said when you're playing with Hangry, you should always use Pringles. I'm pretty sure that's one of the characters, isn't it? Pringles.
Yeah.
Sounds like it should be. So.
All right. So thanks to everyone who are part of the community. We'll just quickly say that if you did want to support us on Patreon, we would really appreciate it. You can go over to patreon.com, search for Board Game BBQ and support us there. If you would rather not support us via Patreon, there are other ways you can do that too. You could join our Facebook community. You could leave us a review like we just heard, but try and say something nice about us and not the Dice Man. You could join our Discord community. You can tell your friends. That's a big one that we always leave out.
Yeah.
Tell your friends about how good the podcast is. Share the word around. Get people listening to the show because that's what's really important to us, and that brings more people in. And that's what we're all about.
Back to telling your friends. Tell your friends about the game days and bring some friends to the game days that might be a bit more, I don't know, less inclined to come on their own. I think we've had a few emails and messages recently, and it is quite a challenge for some of the people coming on their own for the first time, especially when they're walking into a room with 120 plus people, and it's like a bit overwhelming. But yeah, like people that you might know that might be interested, just bring them along and, you know, be their buddy, be their plus one and help them out, you know.
And the thing is, one of the things that people really love about our game days is the fact that we do these scheduled teachers where we actually teach people how to play board games. But it's not always the newest hotness that we're teaching. We teach a lot of gateway games. We teach a lot of sort of easy games to understand because we want to build the community and ease people in by learning some of these. And so that's another reason why you should come along, because if you're not quite sure, but you want to jump in, but you're not sure where to go, and you're not going to be left just to read the rules by yourself and sort of, I'm not sure I'll take a chance on this game or this game from our board game library. We actually teach all those games as well. So come along and join in, and you'll be hooked.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, you do teach like all those older games as well too, right, Dan? Like Go and
yes, Mitch, I'm old.
Checkers? Did they checkers in the like?
For anyone that listens to this show as well and has only just tuned in recently, Mitch is like 2 weeks younger than Dan. Just clarify, because people miss like odd episodes and they might not have ever realized that Dan's actually not that old.
Yeah,
no, it's more than 2 weeks. He's a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving on. Otherwise, Dan mightn't forget he's actually on the show and just start talking gibberish.
Reality will hit Mitch real hard.
With that, we will move on to our next segment, Swearing of an Oath. Okay, Swear an Oath time. So, who wants to go first on this little baby? Adrian's not looking at me.
Oh, you go, Dan.
Both go. Dan, go.
We're both keen, so it must be
it must be good. Yes. My last oath was to play Star Wars: The Unlock.
Yes.
Game, yeah.
I heard you grabbed a copy of that for a great price.
I did actually. I got it from some poor sap in Sydney. Some old guy in Sydney I bought it from.
Born the same year as you, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
Look, Jen and I played it. Funnily enough, just this past Wednesday was May the 4th. So, you know, just a bit of a coincidence. My cousin's birthday. His name's Luke. So, you know, Star Wars. But there's 3 games in the Star Wars Unlock series, and we played 2 of them. I played 2 of them with Jen and played the third one on my own, and they're really good. I think I prefer the Unlock series over the Deckscape series, which I've talked about on the show before, and I might prefer it to might prefer it over the Exit as well. One of the things it's a really easy sort of win is the fact that it comes with an app. And so just by when you press play, it counts down for you because you only get 60 minutes to play. But on this one, it was playing sort of thematic sort of Star Warsy music as you're playing. And of the three different ones, one is set on Hoth, one is set in a desert where you're trying to find a Jedi or a temple, and
Tatooine, maybe.
Yeah, and the middle one, I can't remember what the second one was. But the music was actually different each time, and there were a couple of spoilers or anything. There were a couple of things that actually used the app, not just to enter passcodes and stuff, but there's a couple of little puzzly sort of things that you use the app with. But no, I really think they're really, really solid games. One of the things I found odd was that with Deckscape, when you play the Deckscape, you're pretty much just going through the deck and flipping it, and depending on what your choices are, you may flip the next card or use a sequence of the next 6 cards for a puzzle, or you might actually just go and now skip to, number 15, and any other cards you haven't used up until then actually get discarded. With these ones, you're looking for card 62 or 65 or 73 or a letter, and they're not in order. So when we were playing the second game, we kind of I wonder how long we're actually taking of that 60 minutes flicking through the deck trying to find the 72 or the 68 that you need, because you feel like you're burning a bit of time trying to find the next card, particularly when the whole thing is timed. I successfully completed all 3 of them. I did actually run overtime with the third one because the degree of difficulty does ramp up a little bit, but thoroughly enjoyed the Star Wars Unlock. If you're a Star Wars fan, you will enjoy these, I think. But even if you are just a fan of those sort of escape room sort of puzzles, and the fact that it's not just the puzzles on the cards, but sometimes you really got to pay attention to what's on the cards. Again, not doing anything spoilery, but the artwork sometimes is really significant, or there's things you can miss. Really, really enjoyed all of that. So, yeah, Star Wars Unlock, tick.
Do you think the difficulty ramped up by the third one, or do you think the lack of Jen helping you?
That could be. And you know what? It is partly that, because she is wicked smart, but also we did the tutorial, and then we did the first game. And the first game, because we've played a few of these before, you get 60 minutes. I think we did it in about 40, 45. And then we looked at the clock and went, we've got time to do the second one, let's do the second one. And so we already had a rhythm going, and we know what to look for in the cards. We know sort of how the mechanisms work, where you can join 2 cards together, or like a tool and an object together, and you add those 2 numbers together of those cards, and you find that number in the deck. So we sort of had a rhythm going. We ran close to 60 minutes with the second one. The third one, when you're working on your own, you haven't got anyone to bounce those ideas off. And there was one thing where I had to go. I actually went to the solution book, but the solution was exactly what I thought it was. It was just wasn't working for me because I didn't look at it in the right. That was something I hadn't considered. Or if I had someone else to bounce an idea off, I was trying to enter a code and it wasn't working for me. It's like, I should have thought of that, but someone else would have gone, and Jen probably would have gone, have you tried this instead, or this combination, or do it this way. So, and that's the same with anything. Like when I play Chronicles of Crime, I think it's always more fun to have someone else there because you're bouncing those sort of ideas off when you play those detective games. So, but no, really enjoyed Star Wars Unlock. So that's a tick.
And the next one's going to be.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking before, when I got For Northwood from Side Room Games, I also picked up Orchard, a solitaire game, which I have played, and that's really, really cool. Maybe I'll talk about that in a future episode. And the third one I picked up was Fallen Angels, which is a side room game. Now, this is not a solo game. It's actually it plays 2 to 6. So Dan Harris, swear that by the next time I'm on the pod, which is I think next week, I'm going to play Fallen Angels.
Did you know with Fallen Angels, all of the artwork on that, all the photos of the people in that game are actually real people?
They are real people from Sydney.
Late 1800s, I think.
Late 1800s, early 1900s, and they're all sort of gangsters and criminals and undercover mob bosses and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Fascinating. So it's a bit of a detective-y style deduction-y game. Yeah, it reminds me of, looking at some of the cards and the symbols on it, it reminds me a bit of Black Sonata, how you're using certain cards to deduce the hidden cards or the missing cards. But I'll report back on Fallen Angels.
Cool. And Adi, you were chomping at the bit to go.
Well, I had 2 because I had been on the pod previously, like in a double up, and mine was to paint my minis from Jaws of the Lion, which I've done, and I posted pictures in Discord.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was to explore the expansion content for Darwin's Journey.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because I love the game. I thought it was a fantastic game. I really, really thoroughly enjoy the base game. But I wanted the opportunity to play the expansions because, like a lot of our games, guys, like sometimes, they just end up sitting there with all that expansion content. You never get round to it. Then you always have that other thing of like, well, there's so much in the base game already. I don't really need to add anything in at the minute. But then essentially Darwin's Journey could then get, played 10 times, then put away on a shelf, and then another big heavy Euro comes in and something else comes in and it might just get forgotten about and I might not get the opportunity to add that extra content in. And I am so glad I did. It for me personally, it elevated that game to like a top tier game. Like,
right.
I like
one of those expansions you would say I wouldn't play without the expansions? Or?
I would never play without expansion again, 100%. I even taught it to Thomas and his wife with the expansion on TTS just the other day. And yeah, it was very smooth, like no problem. It just adds more options and more avenues to victory. And in a heavy Euro game like that, that's what I like. I feel like the games that I've played, if you're not going up a particular track, it's hard to stay competitive. Whereas this gives you some really interesting mechanisms to combat that. And I really enjoyed it. Even to the point of like me and MJ had a game and I think I was on like 144 and she was on 147. No, I was on 147. She was on 144. And then I was like, sweet, I won. And then we checked this other little end game scoring condition. And then I went down to 144 and she went to 147. And she's like, suck it. And I'm like, I can't believe that. I can't believe it was that close. And it's really that close. And for one, the Darwin's Journey, it has an expansion. I don't know if it's coming to retail. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I know it came with a Kickstarter. It's called the Firelands expansion, and it adds the base game has 3 islands to explore, and you have a boat that goes along a track and unlocks you being able to drop off workers onto these island spaces.
What's the boat called again?
The Beagle. The HMS Beagle or something. And
the Vinny?
The Vinny Beagle. Our dog's called Vinny, and he's a beagle. And Mitch's dog is a beagle and called Frankie. There's beagles everywhere. But, it's funny because this new side of the board, you actually flip the board over to use the Firelands expansion, and there's 5 islands to explore, and you can put 3 different boats down in different avenues and different parts of the ocean. And it just adds more to the game. And also, you get these fire land tokens, or you get land tokens and sea tokens. And once you pass a land token or an ocean token, depending on if you're doing exploration or navigation, which is exploring the island or moving the boat, you get these tokens. And at the start of the game, you're on minus 15 victory points, right? For the tokens. And as you collect them, you get more and more points. If you have, I think, 4, you're back to 0. If you have 5, you get like 3 points, for example. That was the 3-point difference that me and MJ had. And that's the last thing you score. But when you go past one of the ocean tokens, you flip it, right? You flip a card, and the card will have 2 options. One will be a really sick as crazy power, but a massive negative on time, because there's an element of time on this game, which is added into the expansion. And the other one is a little bit of benefit, a little bit of negative time, but you get to take one of the tokens, right? And collecting the tokens stops you getting the negative points. But the other option is taking more time, which also gives you in-game negative points. So what I mean by that is the further you go down on this time track, the more less time management you do, the harder it is to get victory points and do things in the game, because they will actually, as you go down that track, it might cost you an extra action or an extra point or an extra something to do actions that you could already do. They're just making it harder for you to do these actions. And there's a lot of asymmetrical setup as well in this. There's 4 different, they call them scenarios. They're not really a scenario. There's no difference in the game. It just, the end round scoring and the end scoring bonuses and that are just different. And they're pre-set out to make it a more interesting game. You can just randomize everything if you want. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think that anyone that has the game with the expansion and hasn't tried it yet, just get stuck into it. It's really good. It added a mass, and I was convinced that it was part of the base game, like Barrage, and that they removed it to make it more palatable. But that's not the case. They actually designed and developed this expansion specifically for the Kickstarter. And yeah, it's a very good expansion. It makes a really tight, interesting game, just even tighter, even more interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so that's done. So what are you going to put forward for your next oath?
I am very lucky in the fact that I'm going to have a little mini get-together at my place and play Horse's Carriage.
Okay.
It's a game I already have played, but I'm going to play it with 4 players. And potentially, fingers crossed, if anyone else is crazy enough, we will play it. And then we'll play another game, and we'll play it back-to-back, 2 games. But
Wasn't the game that only played at 3 players? Like it was 3 players, no more, no less?
No, 3 players minimum.
Yeah.
Right.
So it goes 3 to 5. I think 5 would be way more interesting when it came to sell and way more interesting to play. But I think it would add maybe 25% extra time to the game, and a game that's already long. So yeah, I think that the 4-player would be good. Give it a
4
run.
might be the sweet spot.
That's right. We'll try that, and I'll get back to you. So,
okay. So that leaves me.
Yeah. What do you got planned?
Sorry.
What was your oath first? You remember?
I do. It was to complete Chapter 2 of the Isoferian Guard. And
is that laughable?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Given that I've already just explained to you guys all earlier that, we've just been bashing around trying to upgrade our gear and build up some costs and get some stuff going. We haven't.
Saw a squirrel and then you went that way.
Exactly.
And then 12 hours later you were like, I haven't had any dinner. What's going on?
We actually little bit of a spoiler. So if you're totally anti-spoilers, turn off now. But it's tiny, tiny, tiny spoiler. We actually got one point where we were presented with a portal, and we said it gave us the option of stepping into it or not. And of course, we were just like, random portal? Why wouldn't I step in? Let's go. Yeah, into the portal. And it took us from like to the total opposite side of the map, and then closed behind us. So yeah, we had to work our way back, and it dumped us in this part of the world which is not a very friendly place. So yeah, we got battered, and we did make it back alive, which was lucky, but we did cop an absolute hiding, and we were kind of like,
was it one of those scenarios where you shouldn't have gone there because everything there was OP and you needed to sort of level up before you go there? Or you know how you can do that in video games where you wander into a section and you go, oh, I shouldn't be here, I got to turn around and get back down the other way?
Yes, but this game actually does it better than that, because based on where you are in the story, that dictates how tough all the villains are, no matter where you go.
Oh, right.
But there is still areas that are slightly tougher than others. But you won't, say for example, like in, Skyrim or whatever, you might stumble into a level 50 dragon while you're only level 2.
Yep.
That won't happen because the absolute highest enemies only unlock when you get to the highest level of the campaign. So that actually does that very well, which means you can take risks and jump into portals, but it just
is there a save game element or something, or a way to
Yep.
Oh, sorry, maybe I've asked the wrong question. Is there like a checkpoint where if you die, you can go back to a state without starting over?
Yes, but you lose everything. So you lose all the money you were carrying and any of the goods you were carrying.
Right. Okay.
Yep. So it
I
does.
thought about asking that earlier when you were saying how you're doing these bit of grinding to earn money and get resources and blah blah blah. Whether if you die you lose all of that, or it's almost like if you're going back to towns and things, it acts like a save game, sort of save point.
You can bank it in certain places, so you can go to certain areas and bank what you've got and unload your gear and stuff like that to save it, so that if you get killed you don't lose it.
Yeah, cool.
But the catch is, if you want to go to a town and buy some stuff, you got to take your gear and your money that you want to pay the blacksmith. So you risk losing it. Anyway.
Right.
So, no, I did not complete my oath. I have been a bad boy. But I will double up, and I will add on to that. I got a new solo RPG game through GameFound this week. It's called Heart of Ice.
Oh.
Next generation game book, and it's just basically one book with a couple of little components like bookmarks and things like that. And from what I've read about it, it's a bit of it's kind of like a cross between a choose your own adventure novel and a role playing game. So you've got you've got a character that has a certain amount of health points and skills and abilities and things like that, and you've got and then you read the book and make decisions based on what happens in the story, and turn to certain pages to see the outcomes and achieve different tasks and things based on what you chose, what abilities you've got with your character, and how healthy or whatever else they may be, like an RPG. So I will make an oath to make a start. I don't know how long the game goes for, so I can't say that I could finish it all. I don't know how long it'll take, but I'll at least make a start on Heart of Ice. See how that goes.
Sounds great.
Yeah, nice. Sounds good.
Yep, cool. Alrighty, so that will bring us to the end of our show. So I would just like to, before we close, say thanks to you both for joining me tonight.
No worries. Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, Dan.
Good fun.
No worries. And we will talk to everyone again next time. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Righto. So we are recording, so check your levels.
Check.
Hello.
Below.
Go again, Adrian. You're a bit soft there. Just give us a quick brown fox.
What's a brown fox?